Hi everyone, this is Dan Brooks bringing you a video on deck tracking. What is deck tracking? Deck tracking is paying attention to the cards in your deck um, and really understanding where all the cards are, what cards are in your deck, on top of your deck, in your opponent's deck, in your opponent's hand, on top of your opponent's deck. If you deck track well, it will make you a better player. Fundamentally, it means if you deck track, you take fuzzy information about, oh, I think that, my opponent has 2 to 4 golds in their deck. They might be able to hit 8 next turn and buy a province, to more precise information, such as my opponent has exactly 2 golds in their deck. I know they're going to hit 7. They can't afford a province, so I'll take the second to last province and win on my turn. So deck tracking is really important in that it gives you precise information that you can use to make precise decisions. So it's an important skill. It's not the most intuitive, and to my knowledge, there hasn't been. I'm not aware of any extensive guides or anything. I could be wrong on that. And so I wanted to put together a video on the methods I use to deck track and provide some background because, again, I think it is a very important skill. A couple things you can do with it. One is to balance your deck. So if you have a certain number of villages, like if you have 3 villages and you're drawing your deck, that means you can support 3 terminals. So you could get some. If you have 3 villages, maybe you want 3 or 4 smithies. Again, you want to know exactly how many villages you have in your deck. And also, as I alluded to before, if you know what cards are on top of your deck or on top of your opponent's deck, you can make more precise decisions. So let's go over sort of in the online Dominion community, at least, let's go over the constraints and kind of the rules and sort of sort of the rules of deck tracking. There are some simple rules like the discard pile. You're not allowed to look at it. There is a VP counter on by default. If you play in paper, there is no VP counter, and so you'll want to track victory points more carefully in paper because you won't you don't have a VP counter to tell you how many provinces you have. I think I might have said you can't look at the discard pile. And another rule is Donald X has said that it's assumed that you're not using any special tools for deck tracking. So here in this video, I'm going to use a notepad for illustration purposes. But if you're playing a tournament or you're playing like Serious Dominion, you are required to deck track using mentally. Like you're not allowed to use any external tools. If you play with your friends, like whatever your friends want to do. But if you're playing in league or you're playing in a tournament, like it's expected that any deck tracking is done mentally. And that means that that means that your method of deck tracking needs to be reasonably efficient. There's a lot going on. Like in a typical game might progress at something like 1 turn per minute with a bunch of cards being played. It's hard to track every action. So I'm going to go over the method that I like to use, and that's to use a counter. So here, I'm just going to, this is for illustration only, of course. So I have 7 copper and 3 estate. And this is what I'm going to use to describe my initial starting deck. And I'm actually only going to track my deck. The log is here on the right, and so the log can be quite useful. So you can see from the log that Lord Raddington bought a chapel, and there's 60 copper initially, and in 2-player or in most versions there's 8 estates plus 3 for each player. So here I can look at the log to see that Lord Raddington bought a chapel. Can see the top card of the discard. Again, you can't ruffle through. And here I see there's a chapel gone from supply, so I know that Raddington has one chapel. So here, so I'm going to buy a chapel. And as I buy a chapel, I'm going to update my tracker chapel. And so now, like I know it's kind of obvious at this point, but I have 4 copper in here. I know I can't actually mouse. Oh, I can mouse over this. Cool. So I have 4 copper, 1 estate in my hand. So I know that the two estates, 1 chapel, and 3 copper in the discard. So let's just, I'm going to play through a couple turns pretty quickly, just to kind of make a point about how this works. Oh, right. So it's actually pretty important that I update this. So 3 copper. And now every time I either take a card out or add a card, I'm going to click here. Okay, cool. So now, oh, did I mess it up already? I forgot to add the village. Okay. Let's do 1 village. Okay. So now using just this counter that I only need to update when I gain and lose cards, I can figure out what's left. So copper, I have 3. There's 1 in my hand. That means that there needs to be 2 in my deck. Okay. 2 copper in my deck. I have 3 estates, 2 in my hand. That means 1 estate is in the deck. So it's 2 copper, 1 estate, and the village. So next turn, I have 2 copper, 1 estate, 1 village. Cool. And so now I made a point of playing fast so that I would sort of lose track of what's going on. So now Lord Raddington over here has 5 cards in hand. So we can actually figure out what those 5 cards are without looking at the log, just by looking at the trash. So here we can see that, okay, I have 3 copper. So I have 3 copper. There's 10 in the trash. We started with 14, 7 each. That means Lord Raddington has 1 copper. We started with 6 estates in our starting decks. There's 1 in the trash. That means Lord Raddington has 2 estates. So 1 copper, 2 estates. We know Lord Raddington bought a chapel. So there's a chapel in Lord Raddington's hand. And looking for a card that's missing from supply, there's a silver missing. And I don't have a silver in my deck. So that means the silver must be in Lord Raddington's hand. So that means Lord Raddington has, so if we say that again, that's going to be 2 estates, a chapel. And then, yeah, so 2 estates, chapel, silver. Sorry, 2 estates, copper, silver, chapel. Okay, so Raddington can trash the 2 estates and buy a 3. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chapel, copper, 2 estate. Let's see. So get rid of 2 estate, get rid of 1 copper. Confirm trashing, and end turn. Now let's see if we were right. So if we check out the log, yeah, Lord Raddington chapel 2 estates, played a copper and silver, and bought a silver. Cool. So let's say this is another good point. Let's say I've been playing quickly and I kind of forgot what was in my deck, right? Let's say I remember that I have a chapel and a bunch of let's say I forgot. And this can happen pretty quickly because particularly if you're playing Dominion quickly, you are going to forget how many villages you have, how many smithies you have, that kind of thing. This happens pretty frequently. So a good time to kind of refresh your deck tracker is when you draw your entire deck. So here I've drawn everything. now, like, this is a great time to pause, right? Like, thinking about buys. You can also take the time to remind yourself what's in your deck. So here, so here, if I'm playing like a complicated engine, I can, when I've drawn my whole deck, I can write down the contents, and it works quite nicely. So here, for example, maybe I'll workshop for village. Very important to update mentally your tracker immediately, and we can play chapel and trash these cards. So and 2 copper. Okay, and there's my deck. And Raddington will buy another silver. So we can see here, we know that Lord Raddington has, like, the starting cards have been trashed. 3 silver are gone, so Lord Raddington must have 3 silver in a chapel. Okay. And now here, I'm the only one with villages and workshops. So one shortcut I can use is to say, okay, here, even without tracking during the turn, like let's say I want 3 villages and 2 workshops, I can just type that in. And now, like, I can see my whole deck, so it's pretty easy. And let's, so Lord Raddington bought a gold. Even if, again, like, because I know that these are the cards that I have, I could just look at the cards missing from supply, and I know that these belong to Raddington. So you can look at supply minus the cards you have. Those are the cards your opponent has. So here, and this time, because I am going to draw everything, I'm going to shortcut a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pay attention to each gain. And now only at the end, because I can see all my cards after I've drawn deck, I can go in and say, okay, now I have 4 village, I have 4 workshop, 1 smithy, and 1 chapel. Okay. And this is good because decks that grow exponentially draw themselves anyway. So if you do get your deck to a state where you're drawing everything, it becomes easier to track. So now here, let's try and calculate what's down below. So I know I have 4 villages, but I only have 2 in hand. So 4 villages, 2 in hand, that means 2 villages down there, and I missed my smithy, so that means I have a smithy down there. Let's pay attention to what Raddington did. I can just look at the log here and see that he bought a province. So it's 3 silver, gold, chapel, province, and that's 6, and we can see that there's 6 cards here. So given that I know that I have a good turn coming up, maybe I want another smithy, and then maybe I can take 2 villages. So that's 2 villages and a smithy. So we can just update our state here. And if I'm doing this live, sometimes I like to just keep these numbers in my head. So I might say, okay, 6 villages, I bought another village, I went up to 7 villages, that kind of thing. Smithy, okay. Let's go village. So here it's actually kind of easy. Yeah, given that I'm drawing everything, like normally, if you're not drawing everything, like you need to keep track as you gain. But here, because I am drawing everything, it's a little bit easier, I think. And because of that, I'll just do it like this. Let's see. I think normally you're actually supposed to go for I think normally when I play this I actually gain silver, but this should be fine. Let's grab, don't want to grab too many workshops, so maybe I'll stop here. Okay, and so now that I have everything drawn, I can see that it's 10 villages, 6 workshops, and 3 smithies. And here it's pretty easy, like just looking at this, I know, okay, like I'll have enough actions to play my stuff. Okay, so Raddington buys a province, and we know that Raddington has 3 silver and a gold. And one thing that's interesting here is we know, okay, Raddington has 3 silver, a gold, that's 4 cards, 2 provinces, and a chapel. So that's, and we're 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is good. We're actually missing 1 card for Raddington. Let's see if we can figure out what it is. So 12 points is the 2 provinces, 2 silver and a gold. It's not a copper. So this is 6, chapel 7. What is the mystery card? Let's see. Oh, so here we can see Raddington plays a smithy. Oh shoot, so I only have 2 smithies. So maybe a little bit under smithied. Oops. Okay. But that means that Lord Raddington will actually be able to province for a while. And that's an example of me kind of like not sort of making a mistake on deck tracking, and it can have a significant impact. Here I'm only overdrawing by 2. If I had another smithy, right, I have 10 villages and only 8 terminals. It would be better to have 9 terminals. Like I obviously need a smithy village to kick off, so maybe I want a few extra villages for reliability. But I would have definitely liked a 3rd smithy there. So now I'll do something like I'll grab a smithy, which will be kind of nice. And then maybe I'll grab something like 3 silver. And then, so I guess we'll draw up the 3 silver. And now, I don't think I want a smithy on top or anything. But okay, now I can kind of calculate, right? Like let's say I decide to buy an artisan here. I currently have 6 workshops. Maybe I want to go for gardens or something. Yeah. So let's see. I think 3 smithies. Maybe we want 4 smithies. So maybe I can just start writing in here. So I gained a smithy, so it's up to 3 smithies. Now, I think, so here I can kind of see, like I'm going to buy an artisan. So let's add 1 artisan here. And maybe I want to gain and play a terminal like a witch. Maybe I don't. I guess I don't. Maybe I'm going to gain and play market. So in that case, I do think I want a 4th smithy in any case. Let's go up to 4 smithies. And now, okay, so now if I gain the artisan, I'm perfectly terminal balanced. So maybe I can afford to take a silver here. So go up to 4 silver. And now I can go ahead and take my artisan. Okay, so Raddington gains a gold. That's 2 gold and 3 silver for Raddington. So play village, play village. Yeah, and this is a little bit unfortunate. Let's see. So now I guess kind of the question is, do I want to go for gardens? Let's actually calculate if I can. Now this is sort of a good example of where deck tracking can be really handy. So like one question is, can't like one way to empty is to go for gardens, is to go for a 3 pile next turn. So let's see, how much am I going to be able to gain? So I have 6 workshops. I have 6 workshops and an artisan. So if I draw everything, I'll be able to gain 7 cards. So if I take 3 gardens here, it's not quite going to be enough for me to empty on my turn. On the other hand, if I were to take a workshop instead, yeah, I suppose on the other hand, if I go for the smithies, I still think, just for the fun of it, let's take 3 gardens. I think it's a reasonable play. Okay. So Lord Orangton takes a province. So again, it's 2 gold, 3 silver province. And now I know before the turn starts, hey, I only have 8 gains. So there's no way I'm gonna be able to empty these gardens. Unless, oh, actually, unless I can gain and play a workshop mid-turn. Oh, and I guess I can gain and play a workshop with the artisan. So, oh, but if I gain and play workshop, then I'm committed to not playing. Then I'm committed to not playing a smithy because I have 10 villages for 10 extra actions, and then I have 11 terminals to play with it. So sort of the advantage of deck tracking here is that I know, okay, I'm probably just short of going for this gardens thing. If I were to get it, it would sort of be like a puzzles type situation. So let's see. Because of that, oh, and here's another interesting exercise. So what's in my discard pile, right? So here, like, how many cards do I have? How many of them are villages? And like, what are the exact contents of my discard pile? So I can do that just by looking at this, like if I know the context of my deck exactly, the discard pile will be the cards that aren't in play, that aren't in my hand. So I have 8 villages, 4 smithies, 4 workshops, 2 silver, 1 artisan. That means the 3 gardens are down here. The 2 villages, so 3 gardens, 2 villages, 2 silver. So that's 7. The chapel's not here, so it's going to be the chapel. Okay. So that's 3, 2, and then workshops, 2 workshops. Let's see if we can confirm that. So it should be, if we go to the log, you can see a shuffle. So here's a shuffle. So it should be 2 villages, 2 workshops, 3 gardens, and 2 silver. Okay. Let's go ahead and play these villages. Okay. Let's go ahead and play this smithy. Okay. And like, suppose I did that, like that might not have been the best idea. Now we have 4 cards. Let's try and figure out what our hand is going to be next turn. Well, we know that we have 2 villages down there, right? We have 2 villages because I have 8 villages here. So there's 2 villages. I have 4 silver, so there's a silver, a chapel. So 2 villages, silver, chapel, and what's the last card? Oh, it's only 4. Okay, so it's 2 villages, silver, chapel. So I could even go for a lab. But, you know, having 2 villages down there might actually be an asset because then I can put a smithy on top. And that might be helpful. So let's say I do just want to put a smithy on top. Oh, I could also just draw with the smithy, huh? But maybe, you know, but here I can say, okay, maybe it's more important to have a live turn next turn. So, okay, so I added a smithy, so it's going to be 5 smithy. And let's just go ahead and take a bunch of gardens. And so now I've gone up to 8 gardens. And because I knew that I had villages on top, I could pair it with a smithy. And now, like you can see, okay, I have 10 villages and 12 terminals, so I have too many terminals, not counting chapel. But that's okay because I know that I just need to take 4 cards to win. Okay, and here, looks like I'm going to be... So it looks like I'm going to be 1 card short. So one thing I can do is I can take something like a... I guess I still need some points. So I can take a duchy. Top Ticker Workshop. So another interesting question you can ask with deck tracking is, like, when are my gardens going to tick up? This is actually an easy case here because I'm at the top of the shuffle. So again, like thinking about, like, cards can only be in one zone, so track what zone they're in. 22 here, 6 here, so that's 28. This is 30, and I have 36. And just as an exercise, we can check how many cards we have here, and we also have 36 here. So because I have 36 cards here and 36 cards here, that means that the number of cards is accurate. If you're playing in paper, or then like if you're playing online, I mean, like, you're likely not going to... If I ask you how many villages do you have, you might say I have 10 villages. But if you say list every card you have 1 copy of in your deck, it's hard to remember all the cards on the board without looking at it. So I can look at the board and say, okay, I have smithies, I have gardens, I have workshops, I have villages, I have an artisan. I don't think I have any 5s. Do I have a lab? So I'm pretty sure I don't have a lab. That means that Lord Raddington has a lab. I think I took a duchy. I have 4 silver and I have no provinces, that kind of thing. Okay, so we're 6. So if we take 2 workshops, we'll tick up gardens next turn. So that should be pretty safe. So let's go ahead, add 2 workshops. As we grab those workshops, we'll tick this up to 8. And so now it should be 38. Again, you can see we don't know how many cards are in the discard, so it's a little bit harder. And you can see here I'm at 27, but I have 38 cards. So I know it's actually safe to take a workshop and lower it to 1. Because I know Lord Raddington doesn't have any markets, for example, because 10 are in supply. And this is going to be card number 40. So I tick up in points. So that's 9 workshops and 1 estate. Okay, and then here I can just take the last one. I'll update this for the sake of it and end buys, and that's the game. So just to get back into that a little bit, let's see. I'm going to replace this with 7 copper, 3 estate. So I guess I'll just do another one and go over the major themes. I'll just play Smithy Big Money here for fun. So one big theme is to immediately after you purchase a card, to update it in your head. So I might say silver, I have 1 silver. And now here I'm going to say Smithy, okay, this is my first Smithy. So I always keep an updated count. Okay, opponent goes witch. Let's say go for some artisan sentry thing that like isn't necessarily good. So I might say artisan, 1 artisan. And now, okay, like I noticed that a curse showed up in my discard, so I say 1 curse. So it's important to track. So it's important to keep track of what you have. And like that's fairly simple. So here, okay, I can go to the log. The log can also be a useful tool if you have specific questions. So here I have a silver and 4 copper. I want to know what I'm drawing with Smithy. I know I have 7 copper in my deck. 4 were in my last hand, 1's in this hand. That means my top 2 cards are copper, just by process of elimination. Okay, and they were. And so now, taking time to just pay attention to where cards are. So here I have 4 copper and 3 estates. That means I have no estates down here. 3 copper, artisan, silver, and if I look here, like normally you don't have this little notepad. I can see, okay, curse is missing. Lord Reddington is a witch. I must have a curse. So here, let's just say take, I don't know, village. I might say, okay, village, that's my first village. And my prompt is normally just looking at the village pile. And we said, okay, I had no estates down here. I think I can look at the log to remind myself what I had last turn. I had 4 copper last turn. That means there should be 3 copper down here. That means my top card is a copper. I also see a curse showed up in my discard, so I can say, okay, 2 curse. And now, okay, I know I have a curse on top, so maybe I decide that sentry is important. I can see 10 here, so I can say, okay, this is going to be my first sentry. Notice that I'm not actually paying any attention to what Lord Raddington is doing. That's okay. And let's just go through an exercise again of deducing what's in Lord Raddington's deck. So I know what's in my deck. So let's see, what does Lord Raddington have? So a witch is the only action, and a chapel. So witch and chapel. I only have 1 silver, so Lord Raddington must have 2 silver. And there's 10 cards total, so it's witch, chapel, 2 silver, so there's 6 cards left. And if we go to the trash here, okay, Lord Raddington trashed an estate and 3 copper. From the 7, 3 starting, so that means that there's 4 copper, 2 estates, witch, chapel, and 2 silver. So again, you only the point is that just by keeping track of how many cards of each name that you have in your deck, even just every time you buy a smithy, you say, okay, I have 1 smithy. And then if you look at the smithy pile, if you can remember that, you can go over all the cards in supply. You can figure out what you have. If you know what cards are in your deck, you can figure out what cards are left in your deck. Well, if you know what cards are in your deck, you can figure out what cards are in your opponent's deck just by looking at what's not in the trash, what's not in their hand. The one place you lose a bit of information is the discard pile. So here, for example, I don't actually know what's in my discard pile. In this case, I can go back to the log and say, okay, so last turn, and it can get a little bit tricky in the log. So here I can see that last turn I played a smithy. And okay, so last turn, yeah, it's a bit complicated. So you draw at the end of turn. So I drew copper, 3 estates, and a smithy. And then I played smithy and drew 3 coppers. So that means that I had 4 copper, 3 estates, and a smithy, and that's all going to be in my discard along with the village that I bought. So you can figure it out. Just using the log to figure out what's in your discard is a bit time consuming. Another thing that I just want to show you is, let's say I totally forgot how many silvers I have. And I want to figure it out. So one trick, I could look through the log for buys and gains of silver. But currently I believe using Control F is allowed. A lot of people do it. That could change in the future. But if you search gains of silver, you can quickly check, okay. And just to be clear, the text can vary. If you gain 2 silver at once, it'll say gains 2 silver. So that's a bit harder to find. But here I can see the first one is me gaining a silver. The next one is Raddington. The next one's Raddington. And the last one is me. So if I forgot how many silver I have, if I just forget silver, I can go into the log and replace it with a 2. Or similarly, if I forgot how many curses I have. Maybe I had a witch and I gave some out. I can search for gains a curse, and I can see it's 2. So I can correct this with 2. And yeah, like because you're tracking a lot of information, like pretty frequently in real games, you're going to need to, you might say, oh, I thought I only had 4 curses, but I actually have 3. That's going to be pretty common. And I think, let's see. Yeah, and I think that's about it on deck tracking. I'll play out another turn or 2. Let's see. So here, let's just make sure. Yeah, I think that this is right. Again, I can check the log. The log has useful information. The trash has useful information. So here, I gained a silver, and I went up to 2 silver. That looks right. So I play sentry. Village silver. So now I have village on top. And with artisan, yeah, some like neat little tricks. Like if I know that I have village on top, maybe I'll actually artisan a witch to the top of the deck. And now I can look at witch. There's 2 gone. Raddington has 1. I have 1. Okay, I can check. Raddington gave me a curse. Okay, so I have 3 now. I can play village, play witch. Maybe I'll just look at the curse pile, say, okay, I have 3 curses. Raddington has 1 curse. I can look at the village pile, say, okay, I have 1 village. And now I'm going to buy another one, so I'll say 2 villages. In games with witch, one thing that can be really important is figuring out how trashed you are. And this can be tricky to track. But here I can say, okay, I don't think I've trashed a single card. My sentry hit village and silver last turn. And so I can say, okay, I have a ton of junk cards in my deck. I have 7 copper, 3 estates, 3 curses. That's 13. And because of that, trashing is a high priority. So maybe I'll grab like another sentry if I'm trying to skip chapel for whatever reason. I might also like pay a little bit of attention to the cards I have. I'm like, okay, I have village. I have 2 villages in my deck. I have 1 in my hand right now. So I have 1 village in this many cards. I know I have a witch down there too, and an artisan down there. So this, like, even though, like, let's say I decided that I'm gonna buy sentry, this is a really good opportunity to spend maybe 3 or 4 seconds and pay attention to what cards you have. You say, okay, I have 2 estates down there. I have 4 copper. I have artisan. I have witch. I have village. I have 2 silver. And just sort of prepare yourself mentally for next turn. So like, and I have a sentry, so I have a sentry down there too. And just get yourself ready. And then you say, okay, like these are all cards I expected. I play the sentry. I trash the curse. Maybe I get rid of the village because I know I'm playing my witch. I think, yeah, I gained a curse and trashed a curse, so it's even. And then maybe I take village number 3. And let's say, just for the sake of argument, I want to figure out what's down here. I think there was a village. I discarded it to sentries, so I have no villages left. I think I said all 3 estates are down here. So I think there's an estate down there. I think there's an artisan and a smithy too. That means I definitely want a village. I do have an artisan and a smithy, right? Yeah, I'm pretty confident I have artisan and smithy. I forget what the last card is. I think it might be an estate. If I wanted to figure it out, which probably isn't worth it because this isn't a meaningful decision. Like village goes well with artisan smithy. Like let's say it's really important and the game's about to end. I can go here, and I can track. So here it says 3 copper, silver, smithy. And so I say, oh, okay, after the shuffle I actually had smithy. I had smithy at the top of the shuffle. I remember that now. Um, so there's not a smithy down there. There's definitely an artisan. I go through, I can see, oh, I drew an estate. And I have 2 estates here, so that means there's no estates down there. I also drew. Sometimes I like playing all my coppers. If you always play all your coppers, it becomes easier to go through the log and figure out what you had. You can do it from drawing, but it's easier if you just like go to the end and look at, like, if you play 6 coppers, you know, okay, I have 1 left. Okay, so this is 3 coppers, and then this turn I play 2. So I have been playing all my coppers. So I played 3 coppers on turn 8 and 2 coppers on turn 9. I don't think I've trashed any copper, and I can verify that in the log. Trashes 8 copper. So I can just look at trashes, and I'm just scanning for me, the blue player, trashing a copper. And I haven't. I also see that Lord Raddington has trashed what looks like 7 copper, and there's 7 in the trash. So from that, I can deduce my intuition was wrong, and the top of my deck is actually artisan and 2 copper. So let's just confirm that. The way the log works on the reshuffle, you don't actually, like, you can't actually tell, given the logging. Like, let's see, where is it? Here. Yeah, it doesn't actually separate it doesn't say drew 3 cards, shuffle, drew 2. It just says the 5. But I'm pretty sure that I drew artisan and 2 copper, and then shuffled and drew copper curse. So this is also a good example of making a judgment call of when it's necessary to track your deck. So there, for example, like, I decided that I was going to play village, and kind of as an exercise, I showed that I could figure out that I had artisan and 2 copper on top of my deck. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I should have done that. Like, if you're trying to play Dominion at a set pace, like, the top of my deck isn't really going to affect that decision. I just want a village. Like, I'm never going to want a silver. I'm always going to want village or silver there. So generally, in a spot like that, I'd recommend, like, just make the play that you know you're going to make. And if you're going to, like, and if you have a really important decision, like, if, like, opponent having 1 extra coin to go from 7 to 8 is going to make or break the game, then go ahead, go through the log, figure it out, make it super precise, particularly if it's like a high stakes tournament or something. But don't, if it's turn 6 or something, and you're going to draw your deck on turn 8 anyway, and get to update your mental idea of what's in your deck. I guess I should been a little bit bad about updating this, right? Did I update it to 3 villages? I did. Okay, good. I guess I gained a curse, so you can also use the point counter sometimes to figure things out. So here, for example, I could figure out how many estates I have, how many curses, and make sure that adds up to my point total. But the point is, deck tracking takes time, so use the time-consuming methods of deck tracking when, like, for the really high-stakes decisions, and for the routine decisions, you can play quickly and sort of catch up and figure things out later. For the purposes of this video, I've been pretty descriptive about going into details and being able to track where everything is. Cool. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope that this video was helpful for you, sort of in explaining how to deck track. I'd say that the key idea is that if you have a card, it has to be somewhere. So this artisan can either be in my discard, in my deck, in my hand, in my opponent's, deck, and then if it's in their deck, it could be in their draw pile or their hand, or it can be in the trash. And use process of elimination. If you see like a card that's in your hand can't be in your deck, a card that's in, and based on that, if you track the cards in your deck and you look at the cards in the trash, you can figure out what's in your opponent's deck. And if you see them play some cards, okay, those cards aren't, like, those cards are in their hands, so they can't be in their deck. So you can account, you can figure out what's in their deck based on what's not in their hand. It does take effort, but it'll help you become a better player. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.